In October of 2011, I want to say, that was YCS Columbus. I decided to drive the 5 hours from Grand Rapids with my friend Joe. Picked him up like an hour away from my school. You know, we drove down there. Why the hell not? It's a story for a different day, but long story, like it was a really weird trip just because my friends from Tennessee that were coming up just could not drive worth a shit. So, yeah, I'm in my room, or rather my office. I have a lot of rubber ducks up there. Isn't it weird that I have like a real person job and I'm like, I pay bills and I like have like an office in my apartment. Anyway, yeah. I decided to play a dark chaosy Tengu deck. It was basically chaos with Dimensional Alchemists as a focus, battle faders, and had Tengu in it and Gold Bulb and stuff like that. It was just kind of a deck full of a lot of good cards. I decided not to play the deck that I was going to play, Monarchs, the night before. And because I literally don't give a fuck about the condition of my sleeves, and personally me knowing that I'm not going to stack, I just assume that everyone else thinks I'm never going to stack, because even if I wanted to, I would not be able to do it. So I just went through and I was like, well, these 20 cards, which were arbitrary, it was like 1 Tengu, 2 of the Dimensional Alchemists, none of the Battle Faders. It was just random Mod Podge of cards that I think I ended up sleeving out with new sleeves. And I was like, they kind of look alike. Obviously, people warned me against that, and I was like, well, I'm not cheating, because look at the fucking deck I'm playing. Not a good argument. Or so you think. And some highlights of cards I ended up playing were, I was playing Wiseman's Chalice, along with a couple other really weird tech choices. The next day, I kind of said, hey, if anyone mentions this to me, I will re-sleeve, but no one did. Even a judge kind of gave me a weird look when he kind of saw my sleeves, and I was like, are you going to say anything? He didn't. So 6-2 at the end of day 1, going into round 9 in it or win it or lose it, win it or go home situation. And I just finished against Lightsworn player, 2-0'd the absolute balls, whatever, I don't know, some expletive out of him, and sat down to play what I would learn to be as a plant player. As soon as I took out my deck, my opponent raised his hand and was like, Judge, and I was looking around like, am I getting in trouble for beating a Lightsworn player so fast in the last round? Judge gets called over, and my opponent is like such a dip about everything. He doesn't even say anything to me. He's just like, Judge, my opponent is sleeves. And I'm like, what about my sleeves? Like, no one said anything to me, because some were not in the best condition. The judge picked him up, viewed him, held them, because he went to go show someone, came back and said, hey, you need to come with me. And I was like, okay. And I was like, you're not going to find any pattern of cheating and stacking. Because this was after I presented my deck to my opponent, like, because I literally don't do that. So I don't, I was like not feeling bad about it at all. So I go over, have to wait in kind of the secretive judge corner, and then they're piecing together. They decide to fan out my deck and try to see patterns and all this other stuff. They figure it's like 19 to 21 cards, or 18 to 22 cards that have markings, and there's no discernible patterns. So like I can kind of see what they're doing, but they're kind of pushing me away, like, you need to stay over there. They called me over and said, would you like to explain the situation? And I was like, I told them exactly what happened. I was like, I'm literally just lazy. And they kind of were nodding their heads, like, all this makes sense. I was like, that's why the sleeves are, all this, and, some were kind of damaged, and because there was no pattern between which cards were damaged and not damaged. None of them were necessarily damaged more than the others. So after like 15 minutes, they decided that I wasn't cheating based on my sleeves. However, 4 cards were faced the opposite direction from the others. You know what those 4 cards were? They were Trap Dust Shoot, Mind Crush, Dark Arm Dragon, and Wiseman's Chalice. Remember how I just said that I 2-0'd the bananas out of a Lightsworn player? What cards do you typically side out when you're going second? Trap Dust Shoot. If you're only playing, you also side out Mind Crush. My deck, as I said, was a chaos with Tengu and stuff. Dark Arm really didn't work. Wiseman's Chalice was literally the worst idea in my entire life, so I sided it out every time. I kind of start freaking out because I'm like, oh, they think I'm cheating. And I'm like panicking at this point. I was like, I'm not cheating, I'm not cheating. They're like, well, these cards were, face up, going the other direction. Like, you were trying to stack these two. And I was like, well, they weren't at the top, were they, when I presented my deck? And they're like, no, but they were like this and this. And I was like, I was freaking out. Like, literally, like, I'm sorry, I wasn't doing this. And they're kind of giving me the look like, yeah, you shouldn't do this. I was like, wait a second, why the hell would I stack Dark Armed and Wiseman's Chalice? I literally said, why the hell? They kind of like taken it back. Like, what's he getting at? As before they could give her another rebuttal, I'm like, first of all, I'm retarded. I was like, first of all, I'm not a clever man. If I was trying to cheat with this, why would I have mismatching oblong sleeves that would easily get me called. And they were like, we don't know, but you did stack Trap Dash Shoot and Mind Crush. I interrupted them. I was like, why would I stack Wiseman's Chalice? And they're like, well, I was like, why? And they're like, because, why? And they're like, sir, you need to calm down or we're going to DQ you. I was like, why would you, I'm not cheating, I'm just stupid. They talked amongst themselves and like, well, you were stacking these 2 cards. I was like, but I wasn't cheating. They went back to talk to themselves like, okay, you can't stack these, like, you can't do this. And I was like, okay, can I get more sleeves? And they went back to talk to themselves, and they're like, okay, fine, go buy more sleeves. Yeah, you aren't punished at all. And, yeah. So I go back, and I'm like, sweet, I'm 6'2", I'm going to play. And then I'm getting 2-0'd by this guy because he ended up top, so I go back, they end up not even giving me I go back, they end up giving me a game loss. I don't know if it was, I think it was just because my sleeve sucked, which happens. Like, if you have really crappy sleeves, like, I was penalized a game, but they confirmed that I wasn't cheating, which was, but they confirmed that I wasn't cheating, which I wasn't. So, I don't really have a moral of the story, except I should say run Wiseman's Chalice, because it gets you out of trouble. It just proves that you're stupid and not cheating.